Beyond the Wrench with Jay Goninen from WrenchWay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Wrench. I am your host, Jay Goninen, and today I have with me Andrew Jablonowski, who is the Content and Curriculum Manager for Garage Gurus. And before we get started, we have a roundtable discussion happening next week, Tuesday, July 12th at 1 p.m. Central Time. We are going to be joined by WrenchWay Top Shops to talk about how Top Shops structure technician mentorship programs. You can learn more about this webinar and sign up by visiting wrenchway.com/events. Drew, how are you doing today?
Great, Jay. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. In the middle of summer here in Wisconsin, we get at least like 3 days of summer, so I'm pretty excited about that. But all in all, life is good. How is everything at Garage Gurus?
Perfect. So I'm at our Detroit location, so Detroit, Michigan, and same as about as you. We get about 3 months of summer over here, so it's very nice weather right now. Luckily, we've had some hot streaks, but I'm ready for the winter to come back again.
Yeah, well, so let's start with Garage Gurus as a whole. Tell us a little bit about Garage Gurus. You guys obviously have a pretty big brand now at this point and are doing some pretty awesome things out there. So tell us a little bit about Garage Gurus.
Yeah, sure. So Garage Gurus is it's the training brand for Drive Inc. And Drive Inc. is the automotive aftermarket parts. So like Moog, Monroe, Felpro, Champion, Walker, Exhaust. So some key brands. And then Garage Gurus is the training arm. So we are brand agnostic, and what our job is solely training. We don't talk about any of the brands. We don't try to sell any of the product. We're just here to basically help educate technicians of today and technicians of tomorrow.
Yeah, and you guys do a phenomenal job at it. I think being able to see even like a display at a trade show, the big rig that you have out there kind of to show off everything that you guys do, super impressive with that side. The marketing and the logo, everything's just, it's really well done and top notch all around. So tell us a little bit about what you actually do for Garage Gurus.
Sure, not a problem. So we have 11 brick and mortar facilities, and then we actually have 2 semi-trailers, and we're able to perform hands-on training out of any of those brick and mortar facilities, or actually out of the semis as well. So you can either come to us, or basically we can come to you. And we have anywhere from 4-day classes, 2-day classes, 1-day course, half-a-day course, or 3-hour, evening field clinics that we provide for technicians. And then we also have a learning management system with a very robust curriculum on that as well. So if you can't make it to some hands-on training, there is some free content out there, as well as some paid content on the LMS that could potentially help enhance, the skills of, the technicians of today. So we try to cover all aspects of automotive. We do even have some HD courses, some heavy duty brakes, wheel end, kind of stuff. And we have some mock-ups for there. It's a little hard to get a semi into some of our locations. But with our hands-on courses, we try to, stay with about a 50-50 mix of PowerPoint presentation, kind of talking about theory, and then going in and doing about 50% hands-on, about the practical aspects of it. And, that'll kind of ebb and flow based on what the master trainer or senior master trainer finds with the students that he has at the time. If they need a little more theory, we'll spend some more time in the classroom. If they've got it and they need to spend more time out in the bays, then they can go out in the bays. And we do have some courses that are located specifically to some of our locations. In St. Louis, we actually have a full machine shop, so we can do machine shop courses there, and then some HVAC courses in certain locations. But for the most part, and I should know the exact number, but we keep adding courses. I want to say we have roughly around 60 hands-on courses that we can offer up from one of our 11 brick and mortar facilities. And then we have about 41, 42 courses that we can offer from our mobile training center or our semis. So the reason it's less is we get pretty involved in some of our hands-on courses where it's a complete, rebuild of a steering, suspension, front and rear of a vehicle. And it can be tough to do that in a parking lot somewhere,
Yeah. So it's dependent on what type of class it is, I assume. Like if you're going the electrical diagnostic route, or maybe even electrical kind of maybe 101 type stuff, you're probably spending a little bit more time on theory in an electrical class versus maybe some other advanced suspension class or something like that.
No, absolutely. So we have a lot of what you would call, I guess, 101 courses, and it's electric, like for instance, your electrical, we actually utilize ATEC boards. And we will start with, to your point, simple theory, getting to building simple circuits, and then, building complex circuits, putting in voltage drops and whatnot, and, having technicians learn how to diagnose something using voltage drop on the ground side or power side, whatever it might be. And that's something that they might not necessarily be able to get out in the field. So, myself, I didn't have really a school education in the automotive business. I kind of went to the school of hard knocks and had some great owners that I worked for. But at the same token, if I messed up, sometimes I had to cover that, repair myself out of my own pocket. But I learned, and it's a different environment out there now. And so hopefully we can try and offer, more aftermarket training so they don't have to go to the school of hard knocks, right? Not everybody might be able to go to a college or a university and, pick up these skills. But, maybe in these short learning modules, these short 1-day, 2-day courses, they can pick up enough where it'll help guide them and basically just help make their job that much easier.
This is a stupid question. So do you, when you get a technician in the class, are they able to bring like their own DVOM or whether it's that, or maybe a tool that they want to maybe get a better understanding of? Can they bring their own, or are you actually supplying the tools and kind of showing them just basic theory or basic operation of that tool?
So both, actually. We try to use multiple different tools. Altels, launches, snap-on tools, pico scopes, fluke meters, snap-on meters. But if there's something specific to, a student, I have no issues with them bringing it in, and it's basically up to the trainer. But I don't think I've met one of our trainers that's ever said, oh no, leave your DVOM out in the car. We're going to use this one specific. Like if that's the tool you've got and that's what you're used to, bring it in. We primarily focus our training around pico and snap-on when it gets into that drivability stuff and fluke. And a lot of it is just because of the ease of displaying it. Nothing wrong with any of the other tools. We have Altels at, I believe, all of our facilities now, as well as snap-ons. And it's just for when you get large classrooms and you're trying to put something onto a display. Normally the snap-on will display more, or when we're building content, it might cut better or something along those lines. So we don't discriminate against any tools in particular. So feel free to bring it in, and if we know how to use it or you know how to use it, we'll help you out with it.
Nice. So let's talk about the students themselves, because I think this is interesting in relation to this big technician shortage everybody's talking about that we're all probably nauseated at hearing. It's been an issue for a while. It probably will be for a while. When you're looking at these students and they're coming into your training, give me an idea of the variation in skill level. Are you looking at a lot of new technicians? Are you looking at experienced technicians? I have a feeling it's kind of a mixture of everything, but curious as to what skill level they're coming to you at.
We see a mixture, to be honest with you. We've seen some very advanced technicians, but I would tell you we probably see a lot more of the entry level, maybe, and I hate putting a letter to it, but maybe more of your like B or C technicians.
Sure.
We do have a lot of courses for, like A-level technicians, master technicians. But it's hard sometimes it's hard for a master technician to come into a classroom and walk away with, or how do you put this? Not be the smartest guy in the room, right? Or not realize they didn't know something. So I met a gentleman once at a training event. He was 80 years old and he was at a field clinic. And, we're like, why are you still here? You're 80 years old, you're wrenching, what can I possibly teach you? And he said, the day I stopped coming to the training is the day I stopped wrenching.
Wow.
So that kind of like hit home, so I always try in my career, I always try to get as much training as I possibly can, and always try to pass on at least one iota of information to someone, whether it's the youngest guy in the room or the oldest guy in the room. There's got to be something hopefully that they can walk away with. And normally there is, normally you don't know what you don't know until you figure it out. And even coming to work for Garage Gurus, I can tell you my skill level, my skill set, it advanced just because of the different trainings and being involved with it and hearing the way that different trainers would teach different subject matter, or the way that they would try to help you retain that information, because everybody has a different style. And normally when we look at it, the average person only retains about 30% of what they pick up in a class. So going to all of these different trainers and listening to them teach these different courses or the same course, I start to pick up more and more and more. So it's great, and just I try to be a sponge, and hopefully the younger generations and the older generations look at it the same way. But I definitely would tell you that we probably have more of the younger generations coming in here than the older, but we do ebb and flow the training so that everybody walks away with something.
And so there's a lot of variables that go into teaching a class, I can imagine, because you're talking different skill levels, the ways that people accept the knowledge or learn the knowledge could be different. I know for my personal experience, I really struggled with the electrical side of things until I got connected with a teacher that, for whatever reason, was probably saying a lot of the same stuff that I had from maybe even other teachers, but the way that it was presented to me and the way that it was explained, something just clicked. And it was so weird for me to see that, where it was something that I had struggled with for a long time. And then when you get that good teacher that can really hit home with each individual, and for whatever reason that switch clicks, I saw it with training folks in my own shops, that it was fun to see that when that light went on and things kind of looked different for them. And I have no way to explain it. I don't know how you guys do that, but when you hit home with somebody, I mean, that makes a world of difference in the shop. It's not just a send them to training and they're not going to get any benefit out of it, because if you make something click for somebody and they're in their daily lives in a shop, that could impact a whole bunch of work that they're doing. And just having that one understanding, or maybe not skipping over something that they thought was not important, but in reality it is super important, right? I mean, there's got to be some value in that alone.
No, absolutely, Jay. We actually just built some 4-day or 32-hour courses, and originally they were designed to help technicians pass the ASE test. So ASE brakes and ASE steering suspension were the first two that we created. What we're finding is not necessarily everybody wants to or cares about passing an ASE test, which is fine. But some people do, and that's what they were kind of designed for. But what we found is they're actually building a huge skill level in these technicians, because they're spending, 16 hours in a classroom learning just about brakes, and then another 16 hours in the bays figuring out how to fix them, how to repair them, how to diagnose them. And, I can't give you an exact number or whatnot, but we've had a lot of response back from some of our customers that they've seen an increase in their RO, right, percentage wise. And it's been astronomical on some of them because these technicians are, to your point, they're learning something that they didn't know to look for. They're learning how to potentially fix something quicker, and that's what at the end of the day, it's customer service, and it's how fast can we turn these bays, right? And that's what it comes down to. Flat rate hasn't gone anywhere that I know of. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. So, they want that car in, diagnosed, repaired, and out of the bay as fast as possible. So if they can pick up something that's going to help them do that, it's absolutely outstanding in my book.
Yeah, and I think it can take a technician from the perception, again, in my experience, maybe that perception from a manager's viewpoint is that that person's lazy or they're not working very hard. But in reality, they're trying their tail off. They just don't know what they're doing. And when you can understand that and not get so frustrated so fast, I see this in industry a lot with shops getting super frustrated with a person that's less than a year out of school, and it ends up, they fire them or they quit, and that person leaves the industry. And I don't think that helps the overall situation that we're in terms of getting more techs into the industry. And so rather than having that viewpoint of like, oh, Timmy's just not performing, we got to move on, like actually take a deeper look into the person, because it could be something like identifying that they need some level of training, or maybe they went through a tech school but didn't grasp that, air conditioning or something like that. Like being able to really look at the individual as a person and say, okay, they're struggling. Is it because they are just lazy, or is there something else there? And I think being able to identify that something else there and then get the adequate and appropriate training for them is so incredibly important for a shop. And really, I look at it as a lot of shops chase their tail in that regard, because they hire new people and they spit them out as fast as they hire them. And it's almost doing the industry a disservice. It's doing your shop a disservice. And it's just not great leadership, in my opinion.
No, I agree. That's a tough one, and I've lectured for some colleges before. And it's great to hear them in their roundtable events, because they say, how do we convince these students to come to the college and then go out to the shops, and after they graduate and they're making less money than somebody who didn't go to college, and some of it, and I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't have the right answer for it, but one of the things I kind of noticed with colleges, and I haven't been to all of them by any stretch of the means, but if you spend 2 years or 4 years, whatever it is, it's tough to say, hey, I'm going to learn brakes, let's say quarter one, front end quarter two, AC quarter three, electrical quarter four. And 2 years later, you're at a shop and now you got to do a brake job. Well, maybe you haven't been working on brakes for that 2 years. I don't know, versus someone who dives right in and they're working on brakes day in, day out, front end, day in, day out, I can see it being tough there. And what's nice with, having an aftermarket training organization like Gurus or any of the other ones out there, hey, we have a brakes course. Come to the brakes course. You're focusing on brakes for a day or two. It's right there in your head. You're back in the shop the next day and you're there. You're doing it, right after you're having it. I had a shop owner once, I was talking to him about training and I said, hey, you really should we got this training. This is what it costs, blah, 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 blah. And, time, cost, those are always key with shop owners. And the guy said, well, what if he leaves my shop? I just paid for this training for my technician. What if he leaves? I said, well, what if he stays? What if the guy stays? Did you ever think of it that way? And I met a nice, great shop owner in Chicago. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the facility.
Go ahead if they're okay with it. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So he was actually from a Jiffy Lube, and he was sending his Daryl, I forget his last name, but he was sending his technicians to our training events. And he was like, hey, I'm okay if they leave. Like, I'm helping out the next person. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, that's a great philosophy to have. Like, a lot of us, we're just looking at our business and what we're doing. But, he's looking at it from an industry standpoint, right? Like, hey, I'll train them up. I'm going to make them better. And you know what? If they leave here, hey, it just looks better on my business. Maybe they pass the word along, but we're doing the customers a justification by training them up. So I agree with you. I mean, we kind of went on I digress a little bit, but
no, that's great.
Yeah, I
Love
think
it.
we have to, we can't dismiss the students, or we can't dismiss the young ones. I remember first day going into a shop, I had a kid graduate from college, and the owner's like, can you help him do this brake job? Right. The guy's an ASE master at the time. I think I only had 2 state certifications. In Michigan, you have to have state certs, but I showed him how to do a brake job. Right. The young technician's probably smarter than I am when it comes to all of the the A1 through A8, but at this point he just couldn't remember what it is, right? And just helped him along, get him going on it, and sometimes that's what it is. Just takes that little bit of push. Maybe there's a, like I said, an aftermarket course you could go to, is just a reminder how to do it. And boom, or you go into an LMS, learn online afterwards. That the one good thing I can tell you about the pandemic, which you can't say there were many good things about it, but we really got a lot of virtual training out there nowadays. There's a lot of training that can be had online. I know we have some as well. Other companies have it, and it's all good stuff. Any training you can take that's going to make you a better person, better technician, why wouldn't you do it?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one, you're right. There wasn't many positives out of the pandemic, but that was a major one, as it kind of forced us into doing some things differently, which I think was great. But, the other thing, as you're talking about that really stands out to me, is that something like brakes, I think maybe there's a lot of shops out there that would say, it's just brakes. I'm not going to send anybody to training, but they're looking at it from their viewpoint. They've done brakes for 30 years and just it comes easy to them. Whereas a young technician, I still to this day, I have to go. I'm restoring a Jeep for my father-in-law right now. And the one thing out of everything on the restoration that I'm not looking forward to is doing the rear drum brakes, because I cannot stand them. And my dad's just like, it's just drum brakes. What are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, this is tough for me. I got to remember how to do drum brakes,
We actually built some drum brake mock-ups for our 4-day brake course, because to your point, they're still out there, and younger generations of technicians have no idea how to do them,
Yeah.
and I remember going to a shop once, and they had an issue with some brake pads, and I was helping them out with some brakes or whatever. And the guy's like, well, I've been doing brakes like this for 35 years. And I was like, well, I can't help it if you've been doing them wrong for 35 years. Like, I work for the manufacturer. I'm trying to tell you what the manufacturer of the brake pads is telling you, and you're telling me that we're wrong. You would be surprised how many people don't even know the proper way to break in brake pads, seat brake pads. I've seen all kinds of things. I've seen people drive in reverse. I've seen them, 2-footed all the way around the block. I've heard drive at 25 miles. I've heard 5 miles. Like, there's an actual standard for that. And it's just as simple as seating the pads to the rotors. Just a simple thing. A lot of technicians don't know how to do it. And
What about this is funny. This is always just a random, this is way off the wall, but like when we're talking about brakes, what is the proper way to, from the horse's mouth, what is the proper way to clean a rotor?
Oh, soap and water.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All day long. Dish detergent. We use a name brand dish detergent, non-scented, in hot water and a scrub brush. We actually will have it's probably actually me on YouTube Tech Tip. Garage Gurus has one. Give us a selfish plug there. But we have a tech tip on there, and it's scrubbing rotors. A lot of technicians don't realize, even our rotors or Wagner rotors, once you machine them, when you're machining them, they become magnetic. And when they're magnetic, all of those small metal particles will stick to it. A can of brake clean is not going to demagnetize a rotor. Soap and water is what's going to demagnetize a rotor. So even after you machine it yourself, if you're in a magical state that can machine it, unlike us in Michigan, we're basically a one-time use on a rotor. You have to use soap and water to clean it. And I have sprayed them with brake clean and then wiped them with a white rag afterwards. Still has metal in it. And they say, oh, well, why did the first pad squeak, but then I replaced the second, with a second set? And I'm like, well, because you sucked all the metal off into the first set of brake pads. Of course they squeak. The second pad set isn't going to squeak because all the metal's gone out of them now, so It's always a fun one to tell people,
But it's so true, though, and I think that's what, when you take it back to the broader concept of it, something that you would assume everybody knows, and going back to when I was a teenager and first started doing brakes, I thought it was so weird that you washed brake rotors like with soap and water. I thought it was the oddest thing, because here's this thing that's stopping this vehicle, and it's a metal part, and you're introducing water to it, and it felt very counterintuitive to me in doing it. But then over the years, you just assume everybody knows that. And looking back, I'm like, if I were to put myself in a new tech shoes and I wasn't explained that, you could do a lot of brakes wrong really fast.
oh yeah, and we've seen, when the EPA mandated the formulation changes in brake cleaner, I want to say it was like 07, 08, we saw a lot more oily residue left behind on rotors. And then you get a grunting and groaning noise. Like we could actually pull the pads off and look at it and see like a white residue and be like, you use brake cleaner to clean this. Like, it's not a pad problem, it's a rotor problem. And then they put second set of pads on, the second set didn't make any noise. Well, once again, the first set sucked up all the brake cleaner, onto it. So
and I think you can apply that to anything, right? Like something as simple as maybe a voltage drop, or doing something that as a shop owner or manager, whatever you are out there, being able to take yourself back to when you first started in the industry and understand that these young techs just don't know what they don't know, right? And I think, something that you assume is really, really easy to do might just not be, or maybe somebody just grasps electronics far more than they do the actual mechanical side of things, and you're going to judge them on how poorly or how much time they took to do a brake job. Like it's kind of getting to the core of who that person is and understanding what their strengths are, so that you can build on that. And I don't think we as an industry do a great job at that. We just kind of assume everybody can do everything, and if you can't, you're a failure, and it's throw you out to the garbage, right?
no, absolutely. Yeah, I would say to your point, what I find funny too is with the younger generations, they're always on their phone, right? My I don't even know how old she is, 14-year-old daughter, she's glued to the dang thing. And, I was just recently doing an engine job, and I had a young kid helping me. And I said, hey, what's step one? He's like, oh, let's drain the oil and we'll do this and we'll do that. I was like, take a picture of the engine bay, take your video camera and just record everything. Cause I don't remember where all these wires go and the bolts go. Like, I mean, I'd like to think I do. And over the years, I've gotten better at it, but take a picture. It's right there. That's one of the best tools you got, is your cell phone. We don't realize it, we just assume.
Oh, it's still, when I talk to managers, that is the maybe number one issue they have right now, is how often their techs are spending time. And a lot of times I think they're assuming they're on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, rather than looking up something that's helpful for them. I think the stress with the manager is that they don't know what they're looking at on their phone. And
I will tell you, when I managed a shop, I actually had to take one of my tech cell phones and put it in the safe, and he was allowed it like every hour or something like that. But I knew 100% he wasn't researching anything. He was texting, his wife or girlfriend at the time. I don't remember, but it's a delicate balance, and I'm assuming you're like me, we're a little bit different. I can lose my phone for a day and I'm like, oh, whatever. It is.
I feel better after losing it. Yeah.
Right? It is what it is. I'm not so connected. I'm not glued to it,
Yeah.
We had an app, and I think we're going to make an app in the future, I hope, but trying to figure out, and maybe somewhere out there it's there and I don't even know, but just connecting all of the resources that everybody needs, and just one spot to be a technician. And I think that's going to be, whoever comes up with that idea, it'll be a winner, right? Maybe it's tools, maybe it's their how to get to your pro demand or all data or Identifix, whatever you're using. Maybe it ties into your shop management system, but just to give them that capability. I mean, the technology's here. It's just somebody spending the time to make that one of the best tools that you can possibly make. So
registration is now open for our third annual Tech Mission event. Tech Mission is a 2-day virtual event that brings together technicians, shop owners and managers, and fixed ops directors to discuss how we can work together to promote and improve technician careers. This year's sessions will ignite and challenge shops to actually take action, working with technicians and schools to elevate the industry. It's completely free to attend, but you must register. Even if you can't attend live, register anyways, and we'll email you the recordings after the event. You can register at wrenchway.com/events. Link is in the show notes.
What are kind of moving on? What are the challenges with training right now? The way that I look at it, I see, the introduction of EVs, hybrids, on top of all of the other stuff that had advanced in technology over the last couple decades. There's a lot for a technician to grasp. What are the challenges at being able to educate technicians? Is it prioritizing what to train on? Is it prioritizing how they learn? I'm sure there's a big bag of challenges, but I'm
yes, and yes, right? So that's a loaded question, right? For starters, prioritization. The shiny word in the industry is ADAS, or actually it's not even ADAS anymore. Now we're going EV. But I mean, just like, think about it, Jay, like how many EV cars are out there? How many EV cars are being serviced in like aftermarket shops right now? How many of them are being serviced in dealerships? It's probably few and far between. So everybody wants that EV training, or everybody wants the ADAS training. And I always go back to, people want to go to the advanced electrical course, but then you figure out that you spend more time teaching them the basics of electrical. We just added a J2534 course to our curriculum. And I sat through a lecture of somebody, and they were talking about how, we should all be doing ADAS. People should be getting into ADAS. If they're not doing ADAS, they shouldn't be doing it. And I said, I got to raise my hand and stop you for a second, because, if you check a flow chart and drivability, step one is check base electrical and check the calibrations of the module. If it's not calibrated, program it. And in every drivability class I ever taught, I would ask guys, all right, cool, who's doing programming here? And nobody would raise their hand. All right, who diagnoses check engine lights here? Everybody raises their hand. I said, well, how can you properly diagnose a check engine light if you can't do computer programming? That is step one. And now we've got people in the industry pushing out ADAS equipment or courses. And I'm not saying it's not something that we should be aware of or something that you should go to, but once again, we're skipping over that foundation, right? We're basically we're trying to create an upside down triangle. You know what I mean? Like we're just balancing on the tip here versus, having this nice foundation and then learning up to the peak. We've got no foundation, and we want to have all this knowledge on the top, and we're just getting top heavy, and eventually we'll fall over. Once you get your basic electrical, base brakes, base front end, base drivability, well, now you've already gone into ADAS, right? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Jay, you can't go to the Ford dealer and say, yeah, I want the ADAS package on my car. I'd like to buy the ADAS. What is ADAS? I'm going to go to the GM and buy ADAS. Oh, okay. What is it? It's brakes, it's front end, it's radar, it's camera, it's CAN. It's all of these things combined. ADAS is just a buzzword in the industry, for, I think it's advanced driver assistance systems. That's brakes. If you have a caliper hanging up, your ADAS is broken. Doesn't matter if you know how to program a radar or recalibrate some LiDAR. It doesn't matter. Hopefully you know how to diagnose a pulling caliper, right? And once again, that's base brakes. EV hybrids. I think there's a lot of hybrids out there. There's some work on them. We do have some hybrid classes. There's a lot of hybrid information out there. I've got to my boss is pushing me to put an EV course together for next year. Reluctantly doing it. The only reason I'm doing it is because I'm trying to convince him to let me buy a few EV cars, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, just Teslas everywhere. Yeah.
Just give me a couple Teslas, give me the Ford Lightning, give me the new Hummer. It's fine. But how many of those are you going to see in your shop, right? Is your money best spent sending your technician to a one-day EV course, or is it better spent sending them to a one-day brakes course, one-day drivability course? fast forward 5 years, there might be a different scenario. But right now, I think that's the new shiny, quarter in the room or whatever you want to call it, that people are paying attention to and everybody's pushing towards. But most of them are under warranty. And when they come out of warranty, how many of them are you going to see at your shop? And if you want to go all in and be the EV shop, hey, hats off to you, go for it. There's probably some big money in it. When we really unwrapped the hybrid course, when we were building it, we really were surprised at how simplistic the hybrid vehicles are. Everybody says like, hey, there's mechanics, there's technicians, there's diagnosticians, there's emissions technicians. When you're a hybrid guy, gal, technician, whatever, it's almost like you're a mechanic, because once the system breaks, you diagnose it. There's no fixing it. It's just remove and replace the component. There's no, let me cut a new vacuum line and put it in there. Let me solder this wire out. It's just, you're replacing the battery, you're replacing the MG1 or MG2, you're replacing the inverter converter. We were surprised. I mean, even to the transmission, how simplistic the trans was. Now, that doesn't mean the technology and the software in them isn't absolutely amazing. How that MG1 and MG2 can, work together. But just how simple they actually were. I mean, even the battery was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. They're all really good points. And I want to pick out something that you had said there.
Go for it.
That kind of interests me, because it's the transition from education to shop. And I was definitely hand up one of the technicians. This is why I was a failed technician, was that I wanted all the kind of the big sexy stuff up front, right? Like, I want to be able to use a scope. I want to be able to do, this advanced diagnostic stuff, but I didn't have a true understanding of electricity, or a true understanding of, as stupid as it sounds, a DVOM and how to make sure that you use it. And it was of no fault of the instructors that I had in the schools. It was more of me not taking it seriously enough. I think you had mentioned it being foundational to all diagnostics, is just that base understanding, but it was very much that, oh, there's that nice shiny thing over there. I want to do that. But even so, with that, I look at the transition from taking it in theory and taking it in a classroom, and how you apply it in a shop. And I'm wondering if you've got advice for the managers that are out there that, maybe you've got that young tech who's getting pretty good at brakes, getting good at undercar stuff in general, and is wanting to transition to do some diagnostic work, but, hasn't had a true electrical class in 2 to 3 years. And trying to remember that stuff. And one, I remember as a young technician just freaking out that I was going to fry a controller or do something like that, or an ECM. But like, then also you look at it, and I'm trying to maybe get an idea or a sense of the best way to introduce them and not put so much pressure in. I think it's easy to say, okay, go follow that person around and watch them do it. But any advice for those managers out there that, they're trying to transition somebody into more of the diagnostic side of things, to really be able to apply the things they learn in theory in the shop?
So, one, you'd be surprised how hard it is to break a car. We have to, a lot of times we try to create case studies and whatnot, and you'd be surprised how hard it is to fry a module. So don't be so scared of it. Also, one thing is, I try to tell technicians, try not to be so scared of the car. So I had some exotic vehicles in my past, as far as where I worked, and some of those customers followed me to some shops. So one of the times I had a Ferrari come in, another time I had a Bentley come in, and one of the technicians was scared of it, didn't want to touch it. I'm like, hey, it's all nuts and bolts, right? Like, there's nothing, it's just expensive nuts and bolts. That's all it is. So you just relax, take a deep breath, and figure it out. So there's realizing that too. And I always tell them, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I understand you want to make all the money up front, but you have to work slow at it, and you'll become better at it. And then, you'll be able to be quick at it. So transitioning someone into drivability is very difficult. And I think there's almost another part to this, is how do we help out the drivability technicians that we have in the shop who are forced to do all of the hard drivability and electrical work while the other technicians might be doing more of the easier jobs or quicker jobs, you know? So there's two sides to this, and it's very troubling. You know, and I was lucky to, when I was taking over as a manager of a facility, it's kind of like a manager shop foreman position. I had some good service writers working for me. So if my technicians got stuck on a car drivability wise, I could go take over for them. You know, I would still pay them what they, you know, what the diag was, but you know, my time is better if they can flip out another vehicle versus, you know, being stuck on one. So, you know, I would go in there and get the hands dirty and then, you know, tell them what it was. And then they could, you know, if it got sold, they could fix it. That's a rarity, right? How do you bring them up? You know, there are some companies out there, some shops that, you know, they have some great programs internally that can do it. But I would tell you, to where we first started with this, the whole webinar is patience, right? You got to be patient with these younger technicians because it is very difficult. And the more training, whether it's online, YouTube, which you know, tech tips, there is some very good information out there on YouTube. You know, there are some very good companies out there. There's a lot of aftermarket training organizations that have some good stuff out there. And I mean, I'll be honest, you know, I look at our stuff, I look at everybody's stuff. I mean, I don't care if you're a competitor. I don't really look at it as us having competitors. We're all here to do the same thing, right? I mean, we're just here to train younger people to make them better technicians, or older technicians to make them better technicians. We just want to make people better at the job they're doing. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I commonly research stuff online. You know, if you've got a technician who's got some downtime, you know, I always would take my oscilloscope and I would go to vehicles and I would check out different sensors and I would save known good patterns. So then I'm building my own library. I try to teach all the technicians I teach that, like, this is a skill, right? You have to practice your skill, right? It's not just you're good at it and then 20 years from now you'll come back and it's like riding a bike. You have to practice daily everything you're doing. So if you're, you know, doing brakes and front end on a regular basis, go check out, you know, what the vehicle is doing on an oxygen sensor or AFR sensor. I mean, you have to, you know, figure out what a light bulb does, you know, how the electrons flow. I mean, it's a long process, especially when you're going from brakes front end into electrical and drivability. It's tough, but what's happening, Jay, to be honest with you, is we're being forced into electrical because it's in everything now. It's in brakes, it's in front end, it's in every aspect of a vehicle. I went and took an ASE test the other day, and I think it was like light duty diesel or something. I'm like, oh crap, they're talking about CAN. You know, and so now we've actually introduced CAN questions into all of our ASE test prep questions because it's in all of the ASE test prep. Everything has to deal with CAN. Everything has a module. You know, I remember in 2008 when I was working with Bentley, they had, I was blown away. They had 32 modules on a car and dual, you know, multiple CAN networks. And I'm like, you can find that on a base Malibu nowadays. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's here. It's complex, you know, and you've got to understand it. And it just try to keep it simple, stupid, right? Take your time, simplify it. And I mean, if you're going to make the investment, make the investment, you know, as a shop manager, if you want to nurture this, you know, this technician and make them a better tech, there's going to be some stumbling blocks, and you just got to realize that and learn how to get over it, you know?
I think that keep it simple, stupid philosophy is so good. And I from the standpoint of, I think that's when I had started to get it a little more in depth was, you know, I had this kind of older technician once that was just great. And Lee, rest in peace, he's no longer with us, but he would like pull me aside and I was actually a rep, and I would go into the shop and he would pull me aside and talk through things. And he's like, Jay, you're overcomplicating it. He's like, basically, we got to get this to here, and this, then we've got to get feedback on what it's doing. And the way that he explained it, again, it was one of those light bulb type of moments where when he just explained it, all of the stuff I had learned over the years kind of just clicked. And it was so weird to me that it just took somebody sitting down and being like, okay, you're overthinking this. Basically, you've got to get electricity down to here. And like the way that I almost felt like going through tech school. It was almost so intimidating because it was like, hey, this is, the future of this industry. And if you don't understand this, you're not going to go very far. And it was just super intimidating. And then you start looking at all the different tools and even how, how to, at the time it was poking a wire, right? Like, and trying to get your reading on whatever wire you're doing. I know I'm kind of going convoluted there, but like, it was so funny to me that just taking a step back and he's like, man, this isn't that hard. Like, you're overthinking this. This just has to get there. And then we got to figure out what it's doing and tell the computer again. Like it was so simplified that it was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of times in our electrical class, in our basic electrical class, on the second day of it, we're, really diving into wiring schematics, and we got some huge, massive wiring schematics out there. I'm like, all right, flip over the paper. What are we looking at? I'm like, all right, we got a fuse, draw a line for a wire, drive the module, draw a line for the ground. There you go. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, you don't need the 90 other wires, right? We're trying to figure out why this particular sensor or whatnot, isn't working. And it's a 2-wire sensor. Draw the power, draw the ground. There you go. It's keep it simple, stupid. You're getting lost in all of the other stuff. And, base electrical. I remember a guy working for me once. He was checking electrical system. He was on it for like an hour and a half. I'm like, what's going on? I was about to jump in, with it. And he's telling me this and that. I'm like, you check the fuse? No, we should probably start, keep it simple. Sure enough, blown fuse, put it in there, turn back on. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, See, now the worst part is you got to diagnose why the fuse is blown or why it did blow, but at least you got to start.
Yeah. You got a chance at it. Looking back, one of the funny things that was frustrating to me, because I thought it should have been easier than it was, but I struggled with it, was where to find the connections, like where to go in the vehicle to find the actual connection. And some manuals did a pretty nice job at like pointing out where it was at, but some of them didn't. And for whatever reason, that would always throw me for a loop, but like to find the actual connection.
Yeah, that's tough. And that goes with, and I'll be honest with you, I think I just realized that probably within the last decade, on GMs, like this means here, this means here, this means here. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know they spelled it out like that. Normally I would search, within the search bar, like, all right, where is S108 splice at? And I'm like, oh, it's actually going to be on the firewall because it's, the 108 or whatever, and I was like, I hear you. It's mind blowing. Like I said, I to this day still learn something new every day. Don't ever think I know it all, even though I'm a master certified tech. I always tell people I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, kind of a thing, because constantly learning. So
that's really cool.
Thank you, Caliber Collision, for being a sponsor of Beyond the Wrench. Caliber Collision is a part of the Caliber's family of companies that are committed to making a difference in the lives of their teammates, customers, and communities. They do this with one singular purpose in mind: restoring the rhythm of your life. Getting their customers back to what matters most to them is what drives them. All of their companies live by the same mission and vision and are looking to invest in teammates who are inspired to serve. Learn more at caliber.com.
We didn't get to talk about you much. We talked a lot about training in general, but
jumped in fast.
Yeah, we did. But I do want to learn a little bit about you. Like how did you get to this point in your career? How did you start off?
I actually had a bum car that I bought. My first car was no good. My buddy told me he knew all about cars. My dad will laugh at this story because he always rubs it in, but he said he'd come with me to look at this car. He said, no, Dad, don't worry about it. My buddy knows everything about cars. fast forward 20 years, my buddy actually knows absolutely nothing about cars, looking back on it. So we bought it, and sure enough, this thing died on the on-ramp getting onto the expressway from buying it. Probably spent like $5,000 some odd dollars in repairs on it. And I'm like, I'm not doing this again. And, just dove into kind of learning about cars and whatnot. And I was like, I'm not paying somebody to fix my own car. And so just kept working at it. I jumped around a lot in the earlier years, going from shop to shop, but I kind of, had one master tech that I, was learning from that said, hey, now's the time, go from shop to shop to shop, learn, from all of these different technicians, go to a brake shop, go to a train shop, go to an engine shop, see what you like, see what you want to do. So I didn't get that carried away, but, I went and I learned from a bunch of different technicians. I had a great mentor, Art King, still talk to him every once in a while. And a couple of great shop owners, Dave Wilcom and Patty. And they, I learned a lot, working for them and working with him. And then eventually I kind of went into the OE side, into the dealerships. And I spent a few years, there, and then kind of the recession hit. And I don't know if you know this or not, but not too many people buying Lamborghinis back in 2008 and 9, so I ended up leaving there, going back into the aftermarket, and went into a pretty big drivability shop. And that's what I really loved, is electrical and drivability. And so kind of put my focus, into there, and somehow stumbled into management. I had a absentee owner who basically said, hey, I'm going back to work. You seem pretty good at talking. And I said, well, my wife doesn't say that, but, so he tossed me the keys. He said, hire yourself a staff. So I did. And I did that for a few years, went to another location and the franchise, and did that for a few years. And then just ended up kind of not wanting to really turn wrenches anymore full time, because I got some arthritis. I started off early in my career doing 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and that plays a toll on your body. So they kind of got into the training side after 20 some years, turning wrenches full time. I miss it. Don't get me wrong. I still like it. People always say, oh, those who can't teach. And I'm like, no, I could, I just didn't want to anymore. Yeah, that's the bottom line. My mentor is still out there killing it, 120 hours a week. And I'm like, man, it must be nice, but it's really nice sitting on this, chair right now, talking to you over a computer in this air conditioned room, kind of a thing. But I still believe in education. I still believe in my trade. I still work on vehicles. I still keep my hands dirty with case studies. I currently sit on 26 ASEs. I still want to get more of them, all of them. Just time. I had, during the pandemic, I found out I had 18 expire on me at one time. Oh, so that sucked, going back to the testing center to take all 18, having to split that up. That was a lot of time. So I'll give a shout out to my boss for giving me a couple of days off to knock that out. So, but now I've done some work. We have a Garage Gurus is really working on trying to have a solid relationship with ASE, because we understand what they're doing and believe in what they're doing. And we've actually helped to write some of their test questions. Some of the, the people on our team and are involved in, the Educational Foundation and their ATMC, Automotive Training Managers Council. So a lot of those organizations, that are helping technicians, we want to be a part of, right? Like I said, I don't see any competition here. I just see people that can help us at the end of the day, help the consumer, help the technician, so yeah. We're doing the best. We have some great customers, some great people who purchase training. So we ourselves will host training events, Jay, on our own. And then sometimes we have some of our customers who buy our products also buy our training from us as well. And they'll host, training events. So it'll be Garage Gurus training sponsored by whoever the vendor is. So it's out there. And I will tell you, the training demand is nuts. The last 24 hours, I've been talking with our training manager and my boss on, how can we get more weeks available for trainers? How can we more trainers? There's just the demand is there, and we need the people, as well to do it. So it's a good problem, right? Because people realize that the training has a value and they're trying to come in and do it.
So how, just a Garage Gurus specific question, how does somebody go about setting up training? Is it you're grouping up multiple shops? Is it one network? I know one of our great customers, VIP Tires and Service, just put on something up in Maine, I believe, somewhere up in the Northeast with a bunch of their people. But how does maybe that local
there's a couple of different ways actually. VIP is a great customer, and they actually go out and purchase some training for their locations on a whole. So you can go to our garageguru.tech. That's kind of our LMS platform. In there, you can find out where there's local training. You can search by location. You can search by kind of what you want as well. You could find one of our local Garage Gurus. They're running around in our tech vans. They can actually do mini clinics at your shop. So they could come in and do, 45 minutes about brakes. And a lot of it is that simplistic information that's just overlooked, like, oh crap, you know what? I had a guy I was teaching one of those 45-minute deals on fuel trims. He's like, man, that was a great refresher. I forgot about that. And, he called me. He's like, I use that, I use that the next day, so it's great. So talk to the tech, the TPS, we'll host them open to public. That'll be on the offering, or, maybe one of the people you buy parts from. And I don't want to call out any vendor versus the other, but, ask them if they have Garage Guru training that you can go to, and they'll let you know, like I said. And sometimes if you're a big enough shop, and you like VIP Tire, they say, hey, we're gonna supply it all for our own guys, and they set it up and they send their whole team to it. And I believe we have one trainer dedicated to them. Great trainer, Bill McLeese, does a fabulous job up there. And I know they really, they appreciate him up there. So, but I think that's about the only ways you could get our training. I mean, I'm not giving you my cell phone. I don't want all the phone calls, but I'll give you my boss, so you can call him,
Well, I think people can find out more at garagegurus.com.
Garagegurus.tech.
Tech. That's important. Yes,
absolutely. And like I said, we have a YouTube channel. If you want to go on our YouTube channel, there's tons of tech tips, as simple as washing rotors, right? And we get into some advanced stuff about oxygen sensors and AFR. So all good stuff out there.
Well, you guys are doing an incredible job with everything. I've gotten to know the team a little bit at Garage Gurus, a lot of really, really good people behind the scenes, and just a pleasure having you on the podcast. I'm sure this won't be the last time. This was a lot of fun, and anytime you want to get just asked really dumb questions about training, just come to me, because I'll be the source for it.
All right, Jay. So what we'll do for you, so you don't have to ask me so many dumb questions, is we'll put a LMS coupon code out there for you and for your listeners. So we'll do 50% off the total discount of the cart there, and we'll have the code be WrenchWay 22. So one word, WrenchWay 22, 50% off. We'll do that, and then hopefully that'll keep the dumb questions down. I'm just kidding with you.
That works perfectly. Well, thank you guys for doing that. That is, I would encourage all of our listeners to go check it out. They're doing some outstanding work, and look forward to seeing how you guys continue to evolve and build the business. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and can't wait to always look forward to our conversations. But this was a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll join us again for another podcast.
Absolutely. Please feel free anytime.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Jay.